Hello, bonjour, welcome back to another inspiring episode of On Location with Zara Durrani, produced with the support of TELUS Story Hive. Today we're here in the historic Gastown district. We're here at the beautiful Chambar restaurant where they're celebrating 20 years of Chambar. Joining me today is an inspiring individual who I've been wanting to bring on the show for quite some time. He's an author, he's an award-winning doctor, best-selling author, and global speaker. He's passionate about biohacking, cell biology, and quantum physics and human potential. He was just speaking at a conference over the weekend, and I've been wanting to get Dr. Sukhi Muker on the show for quite some time. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You finally have time for us.
You finally have time for me.
It's been
awesome.
a long time.
It
Great to
has.
see you. I feel like you're aging in reverse.
Thank you.
What's the secret? Tell us all the secrets.
Well, we're going to dive in today, but really it's really understanding how we're built and how we can nurture and cultivate this amazing technology that lives with all of us. And it's been what I've been studying, researching for 33 years. And it's also me as being this sort of biohacker. It's, how can I get more physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually? So running experiments and, having people that I'm able to serve, and you start to see what works and what doesn't work. But yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today. So
fantastic. I'm excited. And we were talking a bit about stress earlier. That's a topic that I'm really passionate about as someone who's turning 42 this summer. I'm all about, understanding more secrets of biohacking. First of all, what does that word biohacking even mean? Because we are seeing all of a sudden everywhere on social media, Instagram, TikTok, people are writing books about it.
Yeah. Well, if you take the two words, bio is our biology, and hacking is about finding ways to cultivate and nurture our biology. And so there can be many different types of biohacking. A lot of the biohacking is a lot of outside in. What can I take from the outside to advance my biology? And for me, it's understanding this beautiful technology in here and saying, what can I cultivate and nurture from the inside by stimulating it in unique and powerful ways and understanding how this technology works? And for me, what I'm talking about is the nervous system. So the nervous system is, I'll make a bold statement, it is the greatest technology on planet Earth. And I can help you understand why that is.
Please do.
Yeah. So, if we take, Zara, the best doctors, the best scientists, the best minds, the Einsteins, the great minds that have ever walked the face of the planet, and we ask them, let's say we can put them all fictitiously in a room. Okay, we can just collapse the space-time continuum, put them in a room and say, please create a single cell in a Petri dish. And they'd say, okay, great, we're going to try and do that. And today, 2024, we still can't do it. We do not know how to create a single cell in a Petri dish yet. We can, have planes and go to space and have the internet and have this incredible technology, yet we can't create a single cell. And depending on the author, it varies, but we have approximately 100 trillion cells within this, I call this mind-body temple. The human nervous system, it creates over 10,000 new cells every single day.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know this either, but we turn over. Do you notice how, my hair is long, I need to trim it, or my nails are too long, I need to trim them. We're constantly going through cell regeneration and cell breakdown, constantly.
I noticed that in my skin needing exfoliation, and
Totally.
my hair and my nails certainly grow really, really fast, like really blessed with that.
Yeah. So we're brand new every 7 years. And then people say, wow, we're brand new every 7 years? That's crazy. Well, if I'm brand new every 7 years, how come as I get older, I don't feel younger? So that may be a question that a lot of people have. You know, when people are watching this and people hear me speak, it has everything to do with how well that process of cell growth and regeneration versus cell breakdown is occurring. And what's responsible for that is the nervous system. So let me give you some examples. Let's say a child's born. And let's say we see the child, they're a week old, and then we see the child at 3 years old, and we see the child at 6 years old. You don't have to be a scientist, but it's going to be crystal clear they went from being this big to this big. There's a lot of cell growth and regeneration, and there's a lot less cell breakdown. Now on the flip side, if we saw somebody that was 60 years old, and then we saw them 20 years later, and they were 80 years old, what do we notice? They might be shorter, their posture might have changed, their skin has changed. Do you notice how there might be more cell breakdown and degeneration versus growth and regeneration? So in this example, because one of the big pieces that I love is what I call this longevity equation. I don't believe in anti-aging. We age.
I was going to say your skin looks really good.
Oh, thank
Your
you.
skin looks really good. It's
Thank
like,
you. Yeah.
give us the secrets. But obviously the work
Yeah.
that you're doing, it's more than what you're just putting
Yeah.
on your skin. It's
Totally.
the internal.
It's the internal.
So for
Yeah.
those who are watching at home or who are new to the concept of biohacking,
Yeah.
so what can we do at home today for those viewers? And also for me, I want to learn from you. Like,
Yeah,
I
totally.
remember seeing you over 10 years ago, and I
Yeah.
think the first thing that I noticed when I saw you is you look more fit, vibrant,
Thank you.
and somehow youthful.
Thank you.
So we want to learn.
You want to learn, okay.
Yes.
Well, it's important to understand what our nervous system does. And before I answer that, I just want to help you understand the magnitude of this.
Please do.
So the nervous system has 3 different parts. The first part it has our conscious mind. The conscious mind, our prefrontal cortex, the executive decision maker, that represents 2.5% of our nervous system. Another part of the nervous system is responsible for how the body feels. I feel tired, I feel hungry, I feel sad. All those feelings is another 2.5% of the nervous system. Then there's this part of the nervous system that runs 95% of the show. It's called the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system, that's what makes our heart beat. That's what digests our food. So, you know, if we were betting people and we went to Vegas and I said, okay, Zara, on this table here, we have 2.5% odds of winning. This table here, we have 2.5%, but on this table, we have 95% odds of winning. So it's my polite way of saying, what does a 95% actually need to thrive, to allow this amazing intelligence that animates all 100 trillion cells is controlled by the autonomic nervous system. And it's not a question of whether this technology is in people, but it's a question of the expression. And how we choose to live our life determines the expression of the intelligence that lives within the nervous system. That's why we know, like, you know, people probably know, or viewers probably know, like sugar, it's not so good for you, right? So my question is, okay, well, what does sugar do? Well,
You see, I'm not taking any.
I noticed
They brought
that.
me, even though it's brown sugar, it's
Yeah.
like I like my coffee straight up.
Totally. Okay.
Yeah.
So what does sugar do? So I have daughters. My daughters are 11 and 8 years old, and they're like, "Oh, Dad, you know, when it comes to like treats and ice cream, it's like they know my values around these."
You're like blueberries, raspberries.
Exactly.
You don't get those Skittles.
Exactly. So when sugar comes in the body, it's actually a neurological toxin. So it creates toxicity for the nervous system. So when there's toxicity for the nervous system gets stressed out. And when it gets stressed out, the nervous system loses coherence. when it loses coherence, it creates a new environment. And this environment, remember what I said, little child, cell growth, regeneration, older adult, more degeneration. So it really turns into creating an environment in here that keeps this side of the equation going through cell growth and regeneration and minimizing this side of the equation. That's the question we have to ask ourselves. So, you know, you can have some sugar in your coffee. You may or may not like the way it tastes. But I'll tell you right now, we know this. If you put sugar in that coffee, you're actually creating toxicity in the autonomic nervous system in which it has to process. So that's an extra load that it has to process those toxins. It creates a little bit of incoherence, and that is creating slightly more breakdown and degeneration than it is growth and regeneration. Like, do you see what I mean? That's what we talk about. Like, why do we have to, well, we don't have to, but.
So question,
yeah.
Sorry to interject.
Yeah.
Have you completely cut out sugar, or like what is the rule, 80-20, 90-10?
So I've such a, when you're in the biohacking space, what you do is you run a lot of experiments for yourself. And you start to understand how your body ticks. And most of these experiments we can generalize, okay? So I told you earlier, I'm an ultra endurance athlete. So I'm an Ironman athlete. So Ironman it's an event that's considered to be the most difficult single day endurance event on planet Earth. I'm an 8-time Ironman finisher.
Wow.
So an Ironman is a 3.8 kilometer swim, 180 kilometer bike, and then you run a marathon, 42.2 kilometers.
So you're training all year?
I'm training all year, okay? So you need a balance of protein, carbohydrate, and fats to have not just the fuel, but also the infrastructure, the foundation. So your body goes through protein synthesis, cell regeneration, so it has the building blocks, right? So for me, when I have a training session or I'm in the middle of a training session, I have 17 training sessions a week. And if I'm on a
17 in a week?
17 in a week, yeah. So, you know, I told you earlier, I'm training for the Ironman World Championships. So
and where is that taking place?
That's taking place on October 26th, Kona, Hawaii.
Amazing.
And so I'm 50 years old, so yeah, like I'm kind of considered to be one of the fittest, fastest, healthiest 50-year-olds on planet Earth, because there's going to be just over 1,000 males there, and these people are considered the epitome of being fit and fast. And so when you ask me, do I take sugar strategically, because when I'm exercising, when I'm training, the nervous system doesn't respond to sugar in the same way that if I was sitting on the couch watching a TV show or movie and I ingest sugar. In that environment, it's creating incoherence. In the environment that I'm ingesting carbohydrate and sugar, my body is actually burning it as fuel and it's creating no toxicity.
I'm so curious, you work out 17 times a week.
Yes.
Like that's morning and evening?
2-3 sessions a day. So like I go to bed, you know, again, we talk
like
about
7
coherence.
p.m., 8 p.m.?
So I go to bed naturally. I have young daughters and it started with them, but I typically am in bed by 8:30 every night. I have not set an alarm in 16, 17 years.
Wow.
And my body naturally gets up between 4:15, 4:45. I get up, I have a very good routine. I meditate first thing in the morning. I get my eyes on sunlight.
You're the 4 a.m. club. Forget the 5 a.m. club.
Yeah,
You're the
yeah, I'm the 4 a.m. club. Yeah.
I have a little
Yeah.
kitten. She wakes
Yeah.
me up at around 4-ish.
Yeah.
I want to have the same focus and energy as
Yeah.
you do to continue to stay up.
Right, right.
It's certainly my intention that one of these days I want to get up, meditate, and be able to say, okay, I am part of that 5 a.m. club.
Right.
So okay, I want to back up a little
let's
bit
back up.
because you're a chiropractic doctor. Like
Yeah.
like as soon as you said that to me,
Yeah.
I have this visual in my
Yeah.
brain. You know, I'm I'm active on social media, so
Yeah.
I follow all these different accounts, and
Yeah.
you know, I also like to hear those crack pops, all those
Yeah,
sounds.
totally.
That's what I imagine when I hear a chiropractor.
Yeah.
I've seen a chiropractor, I think, twice in my life.
Yeah.
And I know I really need to go
Yeah.
see one because of my posture, my neck. I have
Yeah.
shoulder pain.
Totally.
It's not debilitating, but
Yeah.
it's certainly always there. Sometimes worse than other times when I'm
Right.
filming a lot, when I'm
Right.
working a lot.
Right.
But the idea, because of the stories that I've heard from my friends,
Right.
it keeps me from going to see a chiropractor.
Totally.
You were mentioning
Yeah.
that how that is only one way of doing chiropractic work, that how
Yes.
you help your clients without any of that.
Totally.
Tell us about that.
Tell us about that. Okay. So can we go a little deeper into the
Please
nervous
do.
system?
Please.
Because once we understand the nervous system, then it'll make complete sense how I support and
Okay.
serve people. Okay. So one of the biggest things I tell people is we were once 2 cells inside our mother's body, okay? And then in about 40 weeks, we had 2 arms, 2 legs, organs. We were a human being that was born. Think about that for a minute. So we went from 2 cells to 100 trillion cells in 40 weeks. The intelligence that does that is the same intelligence that when you cut your finger and put a Band-Aid on, 2 days later you take the Band-Aid off, guess what? The cut's gone. What happened there magically? So that intelligence lives within every human being's nervous system. So once we understand that intelligence exists, for me it became a question of how do we cultivate and nurture that intelligence? So that intelligence is what I said is the 95%, the autonomic nervous system. And 95% of it lives between our brain and our pelvis, through our spine and nervous system. So what is the nervous system? The nervous system conducts electricity. So the same way, we have lights here. You hit the switch, electricity goes through, the lights come on. Same thing with our nervous system. It conducts electricity, and that electricity is the intelligence that heals our cut. It's the intelligence that created us, that never abandoned us when we're born. Let's introduce physics to the equation. Okay, so this is my world, Zara.
I love this world.
I live in neurology, physiology, and quantum physics. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit of physics, okay? When I was in school, my physiology professor said, stress causes illness and disease. Would you agree with that statement?
I do.
Yeah, totally, right? So, and I agreed with it. So then I said, okay, thanks, doc. You know, I was a 23-year-old university student.
But we live in a very stressful world.
But then I said, in order to understand how to bypass that, I want to understand, what does stress do to the body? What does stress do to the autonomic nervous system? What does stress do to this amazing intelligence that lives within every person? So let me help you understand that. So we have experiences: physical, mental, emotional, chemical. They come into the body. So what is stress? Well, how come what is stressful for one person is not necessarily stressful for another person? So is stress relative? So what I learned is that our nervous system has a bandwidth or a capacity, okay? And the experiences within our bandwidth and capacity is not stressful for that person. What I also know is every person has a different bandwidth or capacity. And anything outside of our bandwidth and capacity, the 2.5% of our nervous system, the prefrontal cortex, says that's stressful. And what happens with that information is the nervous system constantly wants to learn. It's a learning technology. So I use simple examples. We were children once. Do you know how to ride a bike? Okay. So first time you got on a bike, how successful were you?
Not successful.
Not successful,
Yeah.
yeah. And here's why, okay? So learning to ride a bike is a physical experience. You have to turn the pedals, handlebars. It's a mental experience. You have to think about it. It's an emotional experience. I don't want to fall. I don't want to hit the telephone pole, right? So it's a physical, mental, emotional experience. You don't know how to ride a bike because your nervous system hasn't learned from that physical, mental, emotional experience. But guess what? You started turning the pedals, maybe you had training wheels on, then you got comfortable. Maybe one training wheel came off, the other training wheel came off. Next thing you know, you can ride a bike. And once you ride a bike, your nervous system goes through neuroplasticity, neurogenesis, and creates a program for what we call riding a bike. Now let's pretend you go 20 years without riding a bike, and you show up in a beautiful city like Vancouver and say, oh wow, there's a beautiful seawall, and people ride bikes. I'm gonna go to the local rental shop and rent a bike. But you're thinking, I haven't ridden a bike in 20 years. Guess what? In the first 30 seconds, you might have to think about it, but once you hop on, your nervous system accesses the file, the program that is called riding a bike. It pushes play on it. And after 30 seconds a minute, you no longer have to consciously think about riding a bike. Do you understand how the nervous system works?
Yeah.
So the nervous system wants to learn, wants to adapt, wants to grow. Our mind, our prefrontal cortex, it wants to take us into a world of duality. This is a good experience, this is a bad experience. This is stressful, this is not stressful. Physics says every experience, physical, mental, emotional, chemical, it's actually just energy, it's just atoms coming in to this system. And our nervous system just wants to learn, whether it's within our bandwidth, we call it a happy experience, or it's outside of our bandwidth, a stressful experience. So what I learned was any experience that's beyond our bandwidth that we perceive as stress, the nervous system still wants to learn from it. And guess what it does? It takes the information, it stores it within the autonomic nervous system, so then during time, daily activities, and rest, we can then relearn from that experience so we don't have to go out and relive that experience. However, in our day and age, we stop listening. We call it aging when we say, oh, I wish I could do what I did 5 years ago, but I can no longer do that. Or I don't quite have the energy and the get up and go that I had 5 or 10 years ago.
Do you think that's also in a lot of the language? For example, an idea of like what a 40 or 50 or 60-year-old looks like. Like I'm seeing now, of course, people have had works done and whatnot, yet at the same time, there's an inner glow, an inner vibrancy that you can't fake.
Right.
Your eyes sparkling.
Yeah.
That's not something like the way you were also describing everything. For someone like me, I also hear very spiritual. Because when you're mentioning the 95% and when you mentioned like the cells, the 2 cells, and in 40 weeks, I could just feel like in my brain and my spine, like these sensations of like wow, it's almost miraculous. So I think what you're doing is you're also challenging the idea of like aging per se by doing those experiments, by doing this Ironman and these workouts, and then going to teach individuals that how you can tap into that.
Absolutely. I mean, I believe, based on the nervous system, that we are spiritual beings having a physical, mental, emotional experience called life. I believe the intelligence flowing through our nervous system, we can call it whatever we want. We can call it our spirit, we can call it our inner being. Like when I say I'm not referring to my thumb, my right shoulder. When I say I'm referring to some intangible that we call Sukhi in this world, but there's something there. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this energy, this intelligence, this life force that animates our entire body. And I've even researched this. Like did you know that back in the day, Zara, all the masters of killing understood this? Like check this out, for example. So
How do you mean masters of?
people who wanted to like instantly execute somebody.
Okay.
They were aware of this intelligence and life force.
Okay.
I'll give you an example of how. Like, it's kind of, grim, but I want to share it for the sake of understanding. Like the English, if somebody was being executed, what would they do in Britain? They'd hang them. What happens when you hang someone? Instant disconnection of the nervous system from those electrical impulses, okay? The French, what would they do? The guillotine. Instant disconnection. The samurai, they do not cut off the arm, they do not cut off the leg, the head. Instant disconnection. Martial arts, I studied martial arts for 17 years. A blow to C1, C2 instantly disconnects the spinal cord. So it's like, imagine taking an electrical wire and snipping it so then the lights don't turn on. So when we understand, and I'll tell you right here, the upper cervical area has the greatest flow of intelligence and life force through the nervous system. There is more neurological tissue here than anywhere else in the spinal cord. So this is a very, very sensitive area.
And it's
for
very
our body.
tense for me.
Yeah.
I'm all of a sudden very aware. How can we bring it back to life?
How can we bring it back to life?
All the like lights going on.
Okay. So the big piece that happens is that we live in a world that, in my opinion, is not conducive to honoring and nurturing our nervous system, this life force, this intelligence. Why? Well, let's say we have a 9-to-5 job. We get tired. Well, guess what? 1 cup of coffee in the morning's not enough. Now it's 1 p.m. I'm gonna have a double espresso. Great.
I'm on my number 3.
Okay.
Don't judge. But there's a green juice right there.
There's a green juice
hydrating.
right there. We're staying hydrated. So, it's in the evening after work. One may want a glass of wine. Well, guess what? A glass of wine's not enough. Now it's half a bottle. And next thing you know it, we're taking over a bottle of wine every single night just so we can have that glimmer temporarily of smile. Because what's happening is that when stress builds up in your nervous system, I'm going to tell you what happens in the environment. The nervous system loses coherence. When it loses coherence, it moves into what we call a sympathetic tone. Sympathetic tone is a very low grade response where now the body has to activate the adrenal glands, adrenaline at a low grade level is being released, cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine. And remember what I said, we're brand new. So now the environment in which our cells are in are conducive not to a young child where there's cell growth and regeneration, but actually cell breakdown and degeneration. Because it's like our nervous system does not know the difference between past, between present, and future. Any information that comes in, remember what I said, it's a learning technology. It wants to learn. It does not want to lose out on the opportunity to learn. So anything that's beyond our capacity, it stores. And at a low grade level, we're living it. And a great litmus test for this is if you've had a stressful experience, time, trauma, whatever it is, something physical, mental, emotional, chemical that you know in your mind was stressful and you think about it right now and you still have a charged emotion, that means your nervous system is still living in the biology of that experience, okay? Why am I sharing all this? Well, you asked me what I do, okay? So
I can tell you're just a little bit passionate about, no, but it's informative because we're learning. And,
Totally.
that's why I want to have these conversations is that, we love having entertaining conversations, but this is something I'm very hungry for. And I think a lot of our audiences as well.
Totally. So, here we are, we're in a place where things don't feel good. Things don't feel good physically, they don't feel good mentally, they don't feel good emotionally. Spiritually, we're like, what's that? Because we're just so disconnected, right? So we can start doing things from the outside to make us more temporarily comfortable, but to me that's band-aid work and symptom management, because true healing is cell regeneration, which means we have to change the nervous system from being in an absence of coherence and sympathetic tone to more coherence, parasympathetic tones, create an environment where our cells can regenerate with the right shape, structure, function. And as a result of that, you said to me, you probably saw me over 10 years ago, so I probably would have been 37, 38.
I think it was like 2011 or 2012. 2012.
Okay, so 20,
Yeah.
22 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm 50 now, so I was 38. So I've learned a lot in 12 years. This has been my whole world, but 12 years is a long time, and I've learned so much, but I've applied so much. So even now, I'd say being on this path personally for 33 years, professionally 23 years, I'm doing everything that we talk about here. And so for me, it's helping get people's nervous systems out of incoherence into coherence. One way I do that many ways.
That was my question,
Yeah.
the multi-million dollar question.
Yeah.
How?
Okay. So you asked, okay, so as a doctor of chiropractic, there's a bioenergetics of the nervous system, and there's a geometry of how the nervous system works. And it's a process of taking, not your stereotypical chiropractic, not right or wrong. I just choose not to practice that way. It's based on the energy and tone of the nervous system. It's a combination of people breathing into certain areas, making the nervous system aware of these patterns, which is just unintegrated information, so it can reprocess, reintegrate, go through neuroplasticity, neurogenesis, move out of incoherence into coherence, and then the body starts to reorganize, regenerate from the inside out. And I'll go as far as saying, in 23 years professionally, I don't believe, and having served hundreds and thousands of people, I don't believe I've treated, fixed, healed a single person. Because only the body can do that. It's like, how does someone say, if you have a cut deep enough and you get stitches, it's not the stitches that healed the cut. That just brings the skin together so it heals without a scar. Your body does that. And if you didn't get the stitches, your body would still do that. It just may not look aesthetically as pleasing because there'd be a space and different pigmentation of the epithelial cells called our skin that would go there, if that makes sense. So our body heals everything. Our body is a self-healing organism, and the autonomic nervous system is responsible for that. So my whole model is actually based on neurology and physiology of how we're built.
I found what you said something earlier so fascinating, the fact that you were mentioning about our neck muscles, the C1 and C7, I think.
C1, C2.
C2. So
Yeah.
tell me a bit about that, because I know for me, like sometimes like even this right now is painful. Like not extreme, but
Yeah.
it's like I can just feel. And
Yeah.
sometimes at the end of the day, it was the same for my mom,
Yeah.
and same for my grandmother.
Right.
I do yoga, I lift weights,
Yeah.
I walk a lot,
Yeah.
I live a much healthier lifestyle than
Right.
them.
Yeah.
But I wonder if there's something that is like generational trauma or something that I'm hanging on to that needs to let go. I know spiritually they say it's sort of like believing that you're not trusting in the universe, or I would love to hear that what exactly is this saying about my mindset, and then secondly,
Right.
how does one work through that?
Okay, cool. So, I'm not a mind reader. I don't know the past. People have different philosophies about karma and things like this. Let's not get into that because, that becomes more personal philosophy, if you will. But what I can talk about is our understanding in physics. So in physics, the first law of thermodynamics says, energy cannot be created, energy cannot be destroyed, energy can only be transformed. So I'm like, okay, interesting. So energy is like atoms, proton, electron, neutron, vibrating at a certain frequency. Okay, that's important to know. The level of organization that matter takes is going to be based in the surrounding energy. So I'll give you a simple example. I always use this example. So what is this here? This is water, right? Water is when two hydrogens are bound to an oxygen, H2O, okay? H2O is a molecular structure, but the vibrational frequency is right here in this environment that's making this liquid. What would happen if I lowered the vibrational frequency of water? We all have a device in our home called a freezer. If I put H2O in a freezer, what happens to this liquid structure? Changes. Turns into ice, right? Ice cube. Still H2O, but it's no longer liquid. So our bodies are made of cells. And the vibrational frequency in which the cell is in, if it's in a stressful, traumatic, intergenerational trauma environment, it has a certain level of organization. In this level of organization, H2O is liquid. In another level of organization, it's solid. So once we understand that the nervous system has these pockets, it's a foundation of my work, I won't get too much into it. You know, this is called the thyroid plexus through the cervical area here. We also have a pineal gland, a pituitary gland, a heart plexus, a adrenal plexus, and these lower centers down here. So when we have experiences, and it could be physical, like a car crash or an accident, it could be mental, thoughts, conversations, parenting styles, people saying things to you. It can be emotional, how I feel about a certain person, place, or thing. It can also be chemical, sugar, food, the environment, the air, dirty water. You know, we know this parts of the world don't have clean air nor clean water. Well, guess what? Their nervous systems have to process the chemical toxicity, which is going to significantly reduce their health and quality of life. And if we simply brought them clean water and could somehow change the air, then their nervous system would have to process less, right? So when we go back to you, that was the original question. My exact answer is, I don't know. I don't know your history. I don't know if it's like intergenerational trauma, nor is there a technology that could tell me there is. I might have a gut feeling about it, but based on the experiences you've had, it's also important to understand that we don't have to know. Because remember, energy can't be created, it can't be destroyed, it can only be transformed. So my polite way of saying is, you have potential energy here. And potential energy,
that needs to be released or changed.
It needs to be, remember, energy can't be created, can't be destroyed, only transformed. So pockets of potential energy that move the nervous system into incoherence just need to change to kinetic energy, which is energy in motion. When you move to kinetic energy, the autonomic nervous system goes through neurogenesis, neuroplasticity. It releases the stress and trauma of the original event. What happens? You can turn your neck freely. That's a positive side effect of having a nervous system that's in coherence. Do you understand the word coherence when I say that?
Yeah,
Does that
but
make
tell
sense?
us more for our audience.
So how coherence works is, let's say our hearts, for example. We measure our hearts with an ECG. And there's something called a QRS wave. The heart looks spiky, like kind of like my hair, spiky. That's a healthy heart, okay? QRS wave, it spikes. The nervous system, when you see it fire, if it's spiky, it's in stress. There's no coherence, it's in sympathetic tone, in an environment where there's cell breakdown, degeneration. The nervous system, a healthy, coherent nervous system, when we measure it, and this is the EEG studies, it fires where it has a peak and comes through and has a trough, and it should be symmetrical. Go back to our math 11 class. Remember sine, cosine?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so peak and a trough, beautiful symmetrical waves. That's a coherent nervous system. When the nervous system is in coherence, it's a totally different environment. And so my whole thesis, if you will, is how do I get people's nervous system out of incoherence into coherence?
I feel like we
to
all
change
need
that.
that.
The whole planet needs that. Are you kidding me? Yeah.
We all. So you do mostly one-on-one work, or do you do workshops? How do you work with individuals? Because I'm feeling everything that you're saying. These are the kind of conversations I like to have, or audiobooks or podcasts that I like to listen to, because I personally believe that in that kind of healing, more so. So how would someone like me, who wants to be able to have mobility here, and I recognize that, okay, in my shoulders, in my wings over here, what I'm holding, and I recognize that, spiritually or yogic philosophy, I used to teach yoga and meditation back in the day. I recognize that, okay, when fear, or when, whether it's stress or big T, small t trauma, you're doing this to protect the chest, protecting the heart, versus when I'm relaxed and open to the world, how I'm sitting and showing up in the world, it's different.
Right.
And so I want to hear, you mentioned that you get people to breathe through this. So what does that look like?
What does that look like? So how people work with me.
This is a session, Sukhi, if you didn't know.
So if people work with me directly, I do table work. You're in the city of Vancouver. I'm on the North Shore. That's something that I do. And what I'll say is that once you start unwiring, unfiring these patterns and begin rewiring, refiring these patterns, then the momentum starts to build. It's like now the boulder's rolling down the hill. But if the boulder's stuck and you're going uphill, I'm just going to come right out and say it. You need to work with somebody that understands the nervous system. We cannot do this initially on our own. But once that boulder starts moving, then we can start to begin doing the things in our lifestyle that allow it to continue moving.
So you're not just dealing with the symptom of, okay, your lower back is tight, or you're having hip issues, or sciatica or whatnot. You're going deeper than that, and that's truly fascinating. And that's something I find, those areas, it's like an ongoing thing. It comes and goes, and I recognize that if I'm taking like Advil or Tylenol and injuring myself, whether at the gym or whatnot, but it is in those specific areas that I'm having these issues, and it happens on an annual basis, but some of them that are ongoing. So this is truly fascinating, because I never really knew that this was in the scope of the work that you're doing, but also that chiropractic doctors, this is what because you're now looking at the whole. So what do you find that individuals come to you mostly for help and healing around?
So I've been doing what I do for 23 years. So that's my polite way of saying I've kind of been around the block. So originally it started as whatever people typically see a person for, but I'm not in the world of really treating conditions. I'm in the world of helping people heal, which is cell regeneration, which is growth, higher quality of life.
Human potential. So now it's almost any ailment that people have seek my services, and I'm very, very strong. I feel like I'm ready.
I'm very strong at the start. I tell them, look, like I don't treat anything. I'm just going to work with your nervous system so you can heal this from the inside out. And then so that's, working with people live, and then, online. I have online programs. I have a whole membership.
I noticed you also have coaching.
I do, yeah. So a lot of this work too, I've had the gift of coaching, mentoring holistic healthcare practitioners. So I've been doing that for a decade and a half. So that's a big piece that I do there as well, where people are engaged and they realize, hey, I want to learn as a healthcare practitioner how to do more of what you're doing, if you will. So that's where a big piece of my coaching has come in. That's obviously spilled into coaching everyday people because my whole world is through the nervous system. So then there's nuances of how we can change the way we see certain things to see their possibility and potential. So it's all based on that neuroplasticity and neurogenesis. And remember, our nervous system is like what we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we taste, what we touch, and that intuitive gut feeling. That's our nervous system. So our nervous system is actually our consciousness. So like when I say like if we have tunnel vision, we can't see the solutions that are here, but when you start to get your nervous system in coherence, the possibilities of the world start to open up. And your awareness, your consciousness starts to expand, which I know is an incredibly enriching and enhancement of one's quality of life. Because I believe that's why we're here. I believe we're here to grow and evolve. I believe we experience aches, pain, symptoms, sickness, disease because our nervous system is tapping us on the shoulder saying, hey, we haven't learned and grown from these, so I'm going to get your attention. And so we live in a world where when our body is screaming for our attention, we're trying to decrease the volume by taking Advil. You know, and I say like, you know, imagine driving your vehicle and the gas light goes on. And
you cut the wire.
You cut the wire to the gas light. It's like, great, the gas light's off. You would never do that.
Yeah.
You're like, oh goodness, I only can drive X amount of miles or kilometers. I have to pull into a gas station. Because that alarm signal is telling you of a problem. And the problem is low gas. So this pain is like the gas light, it's a symptom, it's an effect trying to pull you to the cause. And I'm saying in my 23 years, a lot of the causes have to do with the nervous system and the nervous system's ability to process, to integrate, to heal, to move it in that direction.
So if, for example, I come to you and we work through some of this, like a lot of what you're saying is making a lot of sense to me. You know, I'm so excited and happy that we got you here, and we're, you know, it's also things that I'm aware of or heard about, but not like my common dictionary per se, but it does make sense to me. This may sound like a silly question, but like how long or how many sessions or how fast can, I mean, I know like fast is maybe not the right question, but like how soon can someone see results?
Okay, that's a great question.
And like if someone comes to you, obviously you want to understand what's happening, their environment and all of that. Like how many sessions?
So it's a great question. There's two types of people. Somebody that has a high level of coherence, vitality, quality of life, and they have an acute experience. Okay? So let's say they're in a car crash. Let's say they have whiplash, someone rear-ended them. Keep it simple. So think, last week they were great, and then on Saturday they got rear-ended. So what happened? Energy from a car moved, went into their car, destroyed their back end, went in to their driver's seat, through their seat, their head flipped back, and the energy got locked in their upper cervical area. We call this an acute injury. Now they cannot move their neck. They're sitting there like walking around like this because now there's all this tension built up there. But remember, this is physics, right? Can you understand the energy? This car's going 50 kilometers an hour. They're at a stoplight. They're too busy texting on their phone. They hit your car. See, energy to energy to energy to energy. So you got that. It's acute injury, right? Now, in an acute circumstance, as long as that potential energy there doesn't stay there for months and it's only been there for days and someone sees me, within a handful of sessions, we can transform that potential energy to kinetic energy because it hasn't taken home there. Does that make sense? Okay. 10% of the people I work with have acute injuries. 90%, see, I'm a last resort person for a lot of people. Sukhi, I've tried everything. I heard you're doing something unique. Let's give this a try. So what if somebody has been experiencing something for 10, 15, 20 years? Well, remember what I said. Cell regeneration is healing. We're brand new every 7 years. I didn't make that up. If I made it up, I'd make it 7 minutes. Right? But 7 years, okay? If you cut yourself, depending on the depth of the cut, you may want it to heal tonight. But if that cut is deep and you get 42 stitches, a year later, it's still not going to be fully healed because you had 42 stitches on your arm from that cut. We don't make this up.
It takes
Cell
what it
regeneration
takes.
takes time.
Yeah.
But this is what I'll say. Everyone's system's different.
Yeah.
So typically what I do is people come in, they hang out with me for about an hour. We sit, we chat, we explain things. I show them where their patterns are. We do a session. I make some recommendations for...
What do you mean where their patterns are?
So where their nervous system is holding unprocessed, unintegrated information.
Can you notice that with me sitting here?
Of course I can. Of course I can. You can't turn it off, right? It's my perceptual lens. I'll give you an example. So I spoke this weekend at an event, okay? So there's a gentleman there, and we start talking, and he knew I was a speaker. He asked me about my work. I gave him my 90-second spiel. He's like, okay, so where's my nervous system holding on? And I said, well, your adrenal plexus right through here is completely shut down. So you're holding you're processing a lot. There's a lot of cell regeneration happening there. It was crazy because he lifted up his shirt and he had surgery 4 days ago where they removed 70% of his colon. So I
don't know if this is the right word to say, but it almost seems like an intuitive healer.
Well,
that's kind of going in woo-woo, but that's what comes to me.
It's okay, you can say that, and I'm not going to necessarily disagree with that, but here's what I'll say. If you and I were given Braille right now, and we put our hands on it, what is it? It's a bunch of dots. But if you gave a visually impaired person Braille, it's a whole world, a whole language. Why? What's different? Their nervous system has made these dots mean something. They have developed programs and networks to understand a language. So it's my polite way of saying, over my career, 33 years personally, 23 years professionally, my nervous system has learned how to read Braille of the nervous system. So we can call that whatever you want, but that's what it is ultimately. Because to me, I always like to understand, well, how can I read that? Is it intuition? I'm like,
But you've seen enough people, and
I've seen enough people.
Yeah,
you
you
start
start
to
to
mastery,
see it's
right?
police officers or
Totally.
the posture, the breathing, and.
Well, what do they say?
I'm nervous to ask what you're what you're scanning, what you're
we won't go
off
there now.
camera. We'll discuss that off camera.
Yeah. But it's like that 10,000 hour, right? What is it? Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours. So what happens when somebody's been doing work for 40, 50,000 hours? What level of mastery starts to emerge from that? I've done the math, it's over 30,000. So it's okay, well, and whatever it is, like you said, police officer, fireman, anything, whatever it is, teacher, counselor, you start to develop nuances and things that you can't really explain. Yeah.
I'd love to talk about your book, which I should have asked you to bring, Your Mind, Your Body.
It's called Beyond
Body, Beyond Mind. Sorry.
Yeah.
But, I'm thinking about me. So
Yeah.
I'm like, Your Mind, Your Mind. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Sukhi. I feel like I brought you here for selfish reasons to, get a session myself. So tell us a bit about that and, where it's available and what inspired you to write the book.
Yeah. So, I feel like I have 10 more books in me. This book,
I can just hear your passion. I just really see that you're this wealth of knowledge and, your desire to share and heal and help others.
Right. Thank you for that. My book came out over a decade ago, and I just read through it recently. It still holds true because it's very foundational. I know a lot more now since writing the book, because you develop so much more information, knowledge, and wisdom over 14 years when I first wrote it. But it helps us understand. In the first chapter, I share my journey. We don't arrive here by accident. I lost my health and hit rock bottom when I was 18. So that's when my healing journey began, 33 years ago. And I pretty much tried everything under the sun, and then I went into this world called holistic health, which I had no desire to get into, like zero, but I tried everything else. And if nothing else works, well, you're desperate. And that's how really my journey began. And that's how I walked into this world, and I loved it so much.
Healer, heal thyself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I just decided to learn about it. I spent a decade in post-secondary school, and that's why I'm so passionate about it. Obviously, it worked for me, and I'm like, it can work for anyone. So there's a lot of foundational elements in my book that help people understand how extraordinary and how intelligent they are. That's really the foundation of it. So the title of the book is Beyond Body, Beyond Mind, to move beyond that and really tune into the nervous system. So that's the essence of my book. You can get it on Amazon. No, it's not available on Audible because I haven't sat down and done that.
That would be fantastic. I am such an audiobook junkie.
I know.
You were mentioning Dr. Joe Dispenza earlier.
Yeah.
His book, Becoming Supernatural, like I remember I was packing up my apartment in Paris before coming to Vancouver to renew my visa. And there was something about it that I knew I needed to hear.
Right.
And sometimes I just want to get the knowledge going in the back of my brain and just hear that. And it may not integrate at that very moment, but it's there.
Yeah.
And his journey and how he's helped individuals, like I really truly believe in, what you're saying, the word human potential, those two words, and going beyond the mind. And so much of that is what we learn, like through families or through, so what I'm hearing from your story is perhaps energy, like that endless, limitless potential of what I'm capable and possible of doing. Like earlier today I did this like tapping session, and I said, okay, let's do it around manifestation. We won't do it around anxiety, fear, etc., because I feel like, okay, that will like go really deep on camera, and maybe we'll do that personally. But even with that, with the manifestation, her question was, as she's guiding me, is that how are you holding yourself back, and what exactly is that?
Right.
And it's so fascinating because right away it took me to specific situations, times when I was younger, and how I want to like not shine so much.
Right.
Like keep a little lid on it. Like,
That's a pattern.
Yes.
That's an example.
And that's an energy, and I could feel that like in my body, like, and I'm sure that I would do that again, that sequencing, or several more times, and giving myself space to be more vulnerable.
Right, totally.
Like I made sure that, I was like, okay, we're having a little bit of mask on for camera.
Right.
But I could feel like my body and my spine.
Right.
Like what's like happening here. Because most of the time, like when you were talking earlier, I know I'm like this.
Right.
Because I'm in that go mode. Right. But also I'm aware that there's a part of me, there's an essence that intuitively I understand that I can go past that. So things can be more, like you were saying, downhill, like everything is easier instead of pushing uphill.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, the book does that, and this is a unique conversation. I always say, knowledge drives the experience, because when we have knowledge, this is why, for me, unequivocally, I'll just say, well, of course you can heal, because this is how you're built. Doesn't matter how a person presents. And when people have that knowledge, they can trust, and that will allow them to make quantum leaps in their experience. Another thing I have on my website is very, very short, I think it's like 7 pages, the healing power of the nervous system. So, people can, if you don't want to read a whole book, you literally at 7 pages will just help you understand how potent and powerful you truly are. Like literally, like it's that simple. I send people newsletters every single week, and this is all I talk about. It's this constant reminder, and then with that, things that they can continually do to support their nervous system in terms of getting it into that new environment so they can support that healing process.
Are you into cold plunging?
I was into cold plunging well before
This
cold
whole
plunging. When I was into cold plunging, when I started cold plunging, people looked at me like, did you like fall and hit your head? Whereas now
What
it's
are you
like,
doing?
yeah. And here's the thing that I'll say, like cold plunging, yeah, that's an example. And here's what I'll say, cold plunging, it's amazing. And this is what I can tell you clinically. If somebody's nervous system is holding so much trauma, cold plunging might be the worst thing that you can do. So my response to them is, cold plunging is awesome, not yet.
I was reading that on social media somewhere, and I'm like, that can't be. Is it true? But they were explaining, but to hear from you, a doctor.
Totally. Well, I've had real people experience it.
Wow.
And they'd go and they'd be like, there's all these benefits in cold plunging. I've done it, and their whole system shut down. So it's like, and that's why when people say, well, what should I do? It's healing is such a unique process that what is good for one person and makes them totally thrive might not be what another person is ready for, if you will. So like, I thrive training for an Ironman. If you're a couch potato and you try doing that, it will shock your system, right? Because you're not ready for that right yet. It doesn't mean that's not good.
Easy does it, small steps,
Small
not
steps
climbing
in that
Everest
direction.
right away.
Totally.
Doing little hikes first.
Totally. And like, someone might want to, like cold plunging is a great example. So somebody might want to, at the end of a shower, slightly turn down the temperature of the water and let that run on your body for 30 seconds. See how you feel.
Instead of shocking the body.
Just, build into it, lean into it, and see, like, turn the 30 seconds into 60 seconds. After a month, it could be 90 seconds. You can turn down the temperature a little bit more versus, like, jumping into an ocean that is 4 degrees in the middle of winter, because that's what cold plungers do.
You'll think I'm crazy. I went when it was, I think it was -12 outside.
Wow.
Yeah. And you'll tell me off camera whether that's good for me or not.
Yeah.
We've come to our time here, but before I let you go, I would love to quickly hear what, if you would like to share with us, what your daily self-care routine looks like, other than working out 17 times a week.
Right. Okay. Well, first thing in the morning, I always start with gratitude. So since I was 18 years old, the moment that I get off the bed and my feet hit the floor, I have my eyes still closed, and I thank the universe, and I hold a prayer in gratitude to live another day. Because there was a time in my life where I was like right at the edge of, an ND, near-death experience. So every single day I've done that. So it starts with that. We'll get more detailed. So I usually move into a meditation. I do that I have a PEMF mat, pulsed electromagnetic frequency. Sometimes I'll meditate on there. I meditate probably 2-3 times a day. Sometimes my meditations are 5 minutes. Sometimes my meditations are 6 hours. It depends. I've done 10-day silent meditations. So
I've done Vipassana.
You've done Vipassana as well.
Yeah.
So I've done that twice. So for me, when I meditate, it's what brings my nervous system into coherence.
I noticed when I did Vipassana, my posture and the pain in my body, it was after a breakup, and I was in a very this is before I got sober, so over a decade ago, and I was standing taller, my shoulder, back pain, everything gone. I remember on day 7, almost being afraid of the amount of energy, chi, prana, whatever you want to call it, shooting from the palm of my hands and the bottom of my feet.
Right.
And I didn't need much sleep.
Right.
I haven't gone back to do it.
Yeah.
But it was the most, like, it rocked my world, that whole experience.
Because you had so much life force flowing through your nervous system. That's exactly what happened. And that's beautiful. So I've been a meditator for 3 decades. I've been into breath work for over 2 decades. I teach breath work. I do breath work sessions, live sessions, in group settings. So I always do some version of breathing, breath work.
Do you have something coming up?
I do.
Ooh.
It is March 23rd.
Oh, this month. We like it.
You could. I do it every
Media
month.
pass.
Yeah. Yeah, everything's on my website. Go to Dr. Sukhi, drsuki.com. So I always do some version of breathwork, and that's very diverse because it's not this static thing. Because I have an understanding of the nervous system, I'll do cycles, and then I'll do breath holds, holding certain parts of my body, which are activating what I call neurological centers. They're going to start to allow things to flow based on what I'm experiencing. I always train. My training consists of one of the big equations for longevity is mitochondria. So that's why I became an endurance athlete, because an unhealthy person, their mitochondria, they are the energy creators within cells, responsible for what we call ATP. You can increase the quantity and quality of your mitochondria. An unhealthy person might have 50 to 100 mitochondria per cell. Someone like me has thousands of mitochondria per cell because of the training adaptations I have. Being an endurance athlete, zone 2 training, VO2 max training. That's why I swim, I bike, I run, I do strength training, I do mobility training. So that's all incorporated throughout my weeks as well. I am a huge advocate of infrared saunas. I'm in an infrared sauna every single day for 40 minutes. Yes, I meditate again in there. Food, supplementation, absolutely. Based on what's going on, I will seek the services of different people, different things, different modalities based on what's going on. I'm having a big volume in my run training. So I may need to get my legs worked on because they're feeling tight and the fascia is tight. So I'll work with different practitioners. Like, I work with people. So I have a whole team.
You also need support because you're giving a lot.
Giving a lot too. Probably the biggest thing that I'll say is being as present as I can be every single moment. That is probably my superpower. Because I understand the nervous system, if we're not, the opposite of presence is absence. So if we're living in the past and we're living in the future, we're actually not here right now living life. And this is the gift my daughters have given me, is like to be right here and being present. So let's call that mindfulness.
Love that.
So moving into mindfulness every single day throughout my days.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming here, inspiring us, educating us. I'm excited to attend some of these upcoming workshops and classes and learn and grow. And I love what you say, that you're most passionate about human potential. And, I can hear the passion for teaching, for healing, and for guiding others. Thank you so much for joining us today on location here in Vancouver downtown at the Chambar restaurant with Dr. Sukhi Muker. Until next time, I'm your host, Zara Durrani. If you did find this episode inspiring, do make sure to get in touch. Until next time, thank you.
Thank you.